Welcome everyone. It's a little below zero this morning, and I'm really glad to have you here with me. So this video is going to be my top 5 criteria for what makes a great photograph, and then I'm going to use those criteria on my best photos from 2021 to see, are my photos great? Am I a great photographer or not? So let's just dive right into it. Number 1 is light. You got to have great quality light for a photograph to be great. And there's a lot of different factors that make the light good or not. The time of day is a huge one. Right now it's very early. I would say it's after blue hour for sure. The sun's up, but we got these clouds over us, just giving this nice diffused light throughout the whole world, and a lot of light reflecting off the snow that's lighting up the shadows. This light is just fantastic for photography. So we got the different sources of light: the sun, the moon, the stars, the time of day. Is it blue hour? Is it golden hour? Is it straight up noon? The angle of the light matters. The angle matters a lot. And then you also have whether it's a reflected light. You get clouds in the sky, that's going to change things a lot. Clouds will reflect light in beautiful ways, as well as like gap light, where the light is coming in through the clouds through a small gap in the clouds. So the quality of the light is 100% what makes or breaks a great photograph. Well, 100% of the first criteria, but I think it's probably the most important. And the second criteria is composition. And again, you look online, there's volumes written on how to compose a good photograph. And rules of composition, like the rules of thirds or using leading lines, that kind of thing. And while those rules are important, for me, I want the subject of my photograph to tell a story or create a theme, create a mood, and it's got to be an interesting subject, not just a good composition. Then number 3 in my list is the difficulty in getting that photograph. If you can just drive to the nearest pullout in the national park and stand next to 100 other tourists and get the same shot as everybody else, I'm sorry, that's not going to be a great photograph. For me, I want to be able to photograph things that nobody else has ever seen, maybe come up with a composition that's totally unique and special, and that's going to create a great photograph. Number 4 is the skills in editing that you need. Now, a lot of people think that Photoshop is a bad word, but without Photoshop we wouldn't have photos. It'd be like saying I take a lot of film pictures but I never develop them. They're great. We have to develop our photos through Photoshop. It's just a tool. And for me, I use that tool to make the photos look as natural as I possibly can. What comes out of the camera is not necessarily what I remember seeing with my eye. And what I saw also is colored by my mood and the feelings I was having when I captured that photo. And so not only do I want to make it natural looking, but I also want it to convey the impression that I got when I was in that location, in that moment. And sometimes that takes a little bit of manipulation of the photo to make it look the way I remembered it looking. And then the last criteria is that it's got to be able to make a great print. If a photo just looks good on the computer, which a lot of photos do, that backlit screen on a computer is very forgiving and it makes everything look good. If you can't turn that into a great print, it's not a great photo. So those are my 5 criteria, and I'm going to take you back into my studio now. We're going to go through my top 5 photos from 2021 using these criteria to see if they're great photos or not.
Number 3 in my top 5 for 2021 is called Recherche Lumiere, and this was up in the Comanche Peak Wilderness When I woke up this morning, the clouds were just socked in. You can see all the clouds up here. And I had set up some shots, do some practice shooting, but I didn't really have any high expectations. But then this glow started here, and it happened for about 30 seconds. This light happened for about 30 seconds, and then it was gone. So let's first of all talk about the quality of light. Got to talk about this first. This is what is called gap light. Glenn Randall coined that phrase. He's a photographer from Boulder, Colorado. He calls this the rarest light of all. That's where you have the smallest gap between the cloud and the horizon. The rain had cleaned out the atmosphere, so you just had this very, very deep, rich red, these saturated colors that came through. Just lit up the world for about 30 seconds, just long enough for me to take this panorama. That was about I think it was a 10 frame panorama. So this was just an awesome, the light here was just incredible. The composition, the subject, I think works really well, from the sun coming through the leading lines along the base here up into the mountains and kind of circling around. And then the subject of this rugged peak and the light is just amazing. The difficulty in capturing this, I was actually camped here for 2 nights up in Comanche Peak Wilderness. This is just really a hidden location in a wilderness area that sees very, very few visitors. And as far as editing, this was actually an extremely easy photo to edit. It pretty much edited itself, and sometimes it works out that way. So number 3 is called Recherche Lumiere. And here is number 2 in my top 5. It is called Skeleton Milky Way, and this photo made a fantastic print. I'd spent quite a bit of time just wandering around the edge of the 2012 Fern Lake fire up in Rocky Mountain National Park, just through all of these skeleton trees that I knew would be there. I just really couldn't tell what I was shooting. It was way too dark. So the difficulty in capturing this photo is one of the things that makes it one of my best. It was just crazy hard to shoot blind and framing it and focusing. I was in the steep, chaotic, dead forest trying to set up my tripod, and finding a single subject in all of that mess was a real challenge. And then also the Milky Way is just a huge subject to shoot. I couldn't get it in one frame, and while this is a square photo, it was actually a panorama of about 4 wide-angle photos that I had to stitch together. So this was a very, very difficult photo for me to capture. The composition of it, though, I just couldn't beat. The framing of Milky Way and the tree here works out really well together, as well as the placement of Saturn just worked out fantastically here. And the city glow in the clouds down here at the bottom creates this color harmony between the yellow and the blue sky. The quality of the night, again, the sky, night sky is funky because we can't really see in the dark colors in the dark with our eye, but the camera sees the actual color that's there, which actually is greenish. It's called an air glow, and choosing the right color for the Milky Way and the night sky is kind of like choosing the right gray in the black and white photo, since you're effectively turning a black and white photo that the camera sees into a color photo that you see here. So whatever you want is really okay in terms of the creative process. And I wanted to edit a photo that looked natural, and in our mind we think of the skies being kind of dark blue, and so that's what I chose for here, and some yellows and some colors down here in the Milky Way and the city glow. And then also the editing of this photo, and just stitching that panorama together was a real challenge, and cleaning up some of the distractions from other trees and other branches that were sticking up through here was also a challenge in the editing process. So this is Skeleton Trees and number 2. Okay, so this is number 1, the grand champion of 2021. It's called Pristine Paradise. I think this is a 5 out of 5 on all my criteria for what makes a great photograph. So let's start with the difficulty. Just getting to this location was an extremely difficult challenge. It's a very long approach. There were down trees for miles that I had to climb over to get to this spot. And once I got here, it was just dumping down rain for several hours until just a few moments before sunset. And at that time, the sun finally started peeking through the clouds, and it was lighting up all behind me back here. I was just running around like a chicken with my head cut off, shooting everything that got a little touch of light. And then the sun finally set behind the clouds, and I started to get this light here. Ran over to where this alpine tarn was, set up my panorama, took about 8 vertical shots, just following the rules of shooting. So I was just checking out my histogram and getting the f-stop set and the ISO set, and pretty much just blindly shot this panorama. I had no idea that the shot was any good or that the composition was any good, and it was so dark to make sure that I didn't blow out the highlights here. When I was looking at it in the field, I really didn't think I had anything. But the composition here ended up just being absolutely wonderful. I don't know if it was divine intervention or luck or intuition or what that created this, but it was awesome. So I've got all these leading lines, a strong base through the bottom, taking you up into the mountain. We've got the balance of the alpine tarn here and the mountain here on this side. There's just this prominent lake reflection, and the alternating luminosities just invite the eye to explore. You've got the darks to the lights, the darks to the lights, the dark trees and the light rocks. And there's all kinds of these hidden gems in this photograph as well. If you spend enough time looking, you'll see right over here is my tent that I spent a couple of nights in this paradise. And the editing criteria, I learned so much about editing photos in this picture. I discovered just how much data can be recovered in a raw file since it was so dark. I was able to pull out an awful lot from that. And I actually have a square color harmony here. I have yellows and the reds and the blues and the greens, which is a square color harmony, and it works really well together. I skillfully use luminosity masks to add touches of color up here in the clouds, as well as to handle some of the kind of green color cast that I had down here, and bring out a lot more details throughout the photograph. So this is my grand champion for 2021, and it's called Pristine Paradise.
So there you have it. The jury is out, and I still don't know whether or not I'm a great photographer. But what I do know is that by taking the time to create my own criteria for what makes a great photograph, I'm going to become a better photographer over time. So using those criteria and going through my best photos from 2021, I found out that I actually have some photos that are pretty good. But I would love to get your feedback on that. So check out the link in the description below to Creation Images Photography. That's my website, and you can see these 5 photos as well as others on the website, and shoot me some feedback. Let me know what you think on both my photos as well as my criteria for what makes a great photo. And if you really want to support me, there's all kinds of different buying options on the website. So check out the website, Creation Images Photography. And then also, if you haven't already, go ahead and click on the subscribe button. And thank you for watching my videos. I've got additional videos linked at the end of this one. And I try to put out a video once a week on Fridays. So if you ring the bell down in the bottom, you'll also get a notification every time I upload a new video. So thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing you the next time.